Alright, hi there. My name is Jacob Griffith. Today I'd like to show you my presentation that is involving solving hospital inefficiencies, most specifically the wait time issue in hospitals. I don't think it's a surprise that there's quite a few inefficiencies in the hospital system, whether it's excessive wait time, negligent care, meaning sometimes during surgery, physicians will actually leave utensils inside their patients, which is, of course, not something that people like to have. And then not getting treated enough time early in the year. When we were designing our hospital, we were introduced to the topic with someone that went to the hospital. They were not treated enough time, and they had a heart attack and died. So this is an issue that currently happens within the hospital system. And then another issue that's quite large is communication within the hospital. And my design looks to target both the first issue and the fourth issue. So the different costs of these inefficiencies: time lost due to things such as long waiting times, or time to create a response team, or just time for patients to be transferred throughout the hospital, lose money for the system. All these combined are going to add up to approximately 11 billion a year nationwide. That's quite a strong number based on something that could be easily fixed. And you'd think that a ton of people with PhDs would understand that people are just looking to get through the hospital as fast as possible. But, that's just not the way it's working at this point. Some of the research I looked up is there's different things such as the bottleneck, and I will refer to that in my next slide. But let's be honest here, no one likes waiting, especially if you're in pain or you're feeling ill or a family member's feeling ill. No one likes to just sit there and just endure whatever's going on. Everyone likes to get things done as fast as possible, while of course still solving the issue at hand. So one of the reasons that you go to the hospital and you have to wait quite a long time is because of this process called the triage process. It's definitely an important thing. It's basically the sorting between patients to see who is top priority for treatment. Typically elderly and the newborns and very young children are prioritized, or people in incredibly severe accidents, like brought in on a helicopter from like car accidents, something like that. Those would be placed in like a tier one, like just right off the bat, they need treatment. And then it starts moving like towards concussions and then those sorts of things that are lower end on the spectrum of when you're going to get treated. So if you're just going in there, you have to go to the hospital. So you break your arm, but you're not top priority. You could be waiting an hour or two just to see a physician, just based on how crowded the hospital is. And while I've mentioned previously, it is essential to sort through the patients, but I do not believe that it is being handled the most efficient way. So I mentioned the bottleneck and how to solve the bottleneck. Basically, you just need to reduce time for patients to be sorted. Make sure patients always have a place to go so that they can continue to move forward throughout the system. And then efficient treatment while patients are admitted is, of course, helpful as well. So if patients are or if the people treating the patients are always within contact and communicate with each other easily, that would make the treatment most efficient and hopefully continue the process throughout the hospital. So what I designed, I split my design up into three different parts. I have the entrance. I'm just going to go over from left to right and top to bottom. So as you see, if you look at the top left, I have an ambulance bay entrance and then the ambulance waiting room. Now you might be thinking, okay, if people are coming in on an ambulance, why are they in a waiting room? Well, it's probably a good question, but some people that come in on an ambulance necessarily don't need treatment right away. I'm sure everyone can recall like those "I've fallen, I can't get up" commercials where I don't remember what it's called, but an elderly person would fall downstairs. They would be normally admitted on an ambulance, but they don't necessarily need treatment right off the bat, as compared to someone who's been in a car accident. They're experiencing insane amounts of trauma, and they just need treatment right off the bat. So while the wait would not be long, they wouldn't be treated right away. Then moving across the top there's the ambulance triage and the ambulance exam room. So This just sorts out people coming in on their own power through the general entrance, or someone has driven them in there, because more than likely they're not at top priority if they're coming in from that way. This sorts out the most extremes, and then it'll keep them separate throughout the hospital system, as you'll see in the next slide. If you move towards the middle, towards the left, the general entrance is just where people, as I mentioned, coming in on their own power, or someone is taking them into the hospital just because they need treatment for like concussions, broken arms, possibly trauma in some different cases, but more than likely not going to be as severe as someone coming in on an ambulance, which of course if it is, then they can be adjusted accordingly. But you'll notice that the registration is at the front, which is pretty convenient. You go in through this door at the bottom, middle, and you have your general waiting room, general triage, and general exam. You'll notice I have an arrow pointing to an urgent care. I don't know if many people are familiar with this, but an urgent care is just, family's doctor's office, pretty much. That's where you go to get checkups and those sorts of things. But many people that go to the hospital, they don't actually need treatment in the emergency room, but they go there because they know that they will not be denied service based on insurance or whatever. But what it does, it just creates unnecessary, build up in the hospital system. So that's why I implemented easily accessible urgent care as next door that will not crowd the hospital. Okay. And then there's, of course, the general triage, the general exam. So just sorting through the people that are less of priority, but still definitely need to have treatment. And of course, the security desk is in the middle, so there's nothing to be worrying about there. It observes this huge open area. I think it's kind of the lobby almost, okay? And then I had gone over why the addition of urgent care. I'll go over it again. Many patients need to go to the hospital emergency room, don't actually need to be treated there. And then it would allow for the patients to still get the care they need, but not waste the time of physicians required to treat patients in the ER, okay? And of course, I went over the 2 triage centers. I was making the triage process more efficient. If people continuously arrive in more critical condition than someone who is not, such as if for whatever reason there's a ton of car accidents and there's just a ton of people just coming in, they'd be top priority, but someone who has a broken arm, they would just be sitting there. Endless, just constant loop of just no treatment because people are coming in more prioritized over them. This design here aims to eliminate that. So this is moving into the second phase of my design. This is what I would call the treatment area, treatment centers. So once again, at the top, you'll see that it's separated. The emergency-specific treating rooms, those are basically people that come in on the ambulance. They don't need to go into like emergency procedures, but they need treatment. So this is where they'd be treated in those rooms at the top specifically for them. There's the emergency operating rooms to go up to the north side of the paper. These would be specifically designated for patients coming in on ambulances and going to the emergency rooms. And I could see that this would get a lot of use. And what that will do is it will keep operating rooms at the bottom for the general patients being admitted open, so that if they do need surgery coming in, that they can get in. They don't have to wait for operating rooms to open up from people that are coming in from an ambulance. Secondly, I want to go over, I have general ER specific treatment rooms at the bottom. The pharmacy and storage is in this general area towards the left middle. There's a nurse's desk surrounding that, so they can get to patients' treating rooms pretty quickly. And something I want to point out is I had multiple nurses' desks throughout this hospital. If you have just one, just build up in one area, they won't be able to communicate effectively. But if they're spaced out enough, and then they can communicate within like each other, they'll be able to hopefully treat patients more effectively and not have to run all the way back to the same place just to get questions answered or whatever. The radiology is in the center. It's a more centralized location for x-rays and those sorts of things. It just seemed to be more of a convenient location. I wanted to go over the operating rooms just one more time. I wanted to ensure that an operating room will always be available to patients if necessary. Now, this is also going to prevent a lot of people from jumping in front of you, thus extending your wait, as I mentioned, with say someone with a broken arm, and then people keep coming in with car accidents and those sorts of things. This would hopefully alleviate that, because then patients would always have places to go. The last section I want to go over is the family consultation, visiting entrance, and then people who are actually admitted to the hospital. So there's another nurse's desk right here, overlooks all of these admitted patients' rooms. These are not specific as to how they got there, but they're just people who have been admitted to the hospital. Then just continually flowing through the hospital, there's the family consultation rooms in the bottom right, and then there's a visitor specific entrance, and then a dispatch for patients leaving the hospital in the top right. And I just felt it would be more convenient for patients to not have to go through the entire hospital just to see someone that was admitted, or having to talk with a doctor about a surgery or something that was going on with a family member. There's also another security registration checkout area near that exit, which is just more convenient. And then there's a waiting room for those visitors, because more than likely they're not going to be able to get into the consultation room right away. So how is this design better than the current hospital? Well, basically, this allows for efficient flow of patients through the hospital, no matter what condition they're in. The bottleneck issue of patients just building up in one area is hopefully no longer existent. Patients will experience less waiting time and quicker treatment, making them want to come back. And as everyone knows, hospitals are business. Yes, they do have to make money. And if someone is satisfied with their care at a certain hospital, then more than likely they're going to continue to come back. Just some additional notes, as I'm not unable to attend the presentation. I just wanted to go over some things that some people might have questions about. The addition of multiple nurses' desks was to allow for more communication within the hospital, addressing one of the major issues that made them inefficient. And then having a separate entrance for visitors is to allow for less people to congest the front of the hospital, signing in and signing out and all these things. All right, and these are my sources. Thank you for listening to my presentation. Unfortunately, I will not be able to answer all your questions, but I do thank you for listening, and hopefully my design can see use. Thank you.